4 U.S. allies are refusing to put their troops and their ships under U.S. command because they believe that our commander-in-chief, is being reckless with the lives of the soldiers on our forces, and they do not want to put their troops under our command. That is absolutely horrifying, friends. When you have friends like France and Italy and Australia, these countries standing up to the United States and saying, you're going to endanger our soldiers for no apparent reason. Our ships will be in danger and at risk under your command because you guys stink, are terrible at command. We are putting all of our U.S. soldiers at risk, and that's what the Allies are basically saying to our face. We're risking the lives of our soldiers needlessly, and they do not want us doing it with their troops. We got to talk about this, friends. This is the time of year where the commander-in-chief goes over to foreign bases where U.S. troops are stationed and goes and shows how much he cares about how these soldiers are away from home and wants to make sure that they're safe. And yet, here's the fact that our allies are saying that that's all a lie, that our U.S. commanders are putting our soldiers at risk needlessly. And we're going to talk about that this Christmas season. I'm sorry to ruin your holidays. Hopefully you get some good ham or a turkey or a goose or whatever you're doing for holidays. But we're going to jump into this topic because it needs to be talked about. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, but we talk about on this channel things that the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about. And this is the fact that we have France, Spain, Italy, and Australia with warships in the Red Sea. And the United States is like, let's band together and let's work against these Houthi rebels that are shooting at all the cargo ships that are going past. This is a major problem for the world. Last week, if you wanted to take a cargo container, pack it full of stuff, and ship it from Shanghai, China, to the UK, say London or somewhere, okay, you would have been charged $2,400. $2,400. Now, if you're like, that doesn't sound all that much, it's not all that much. This week, you'll be charged $10,000. That's 4 times the price because the ships are now having to divert down south all the way around Africa to get to the UK. They can't go through the Suez Canal. They can't go through the Red Sea. They can't go past Yemen because Yemen is shooting at anything that moves. Not only that, but we just had an incident just yesterday where Iran launched a drone at a ship that was off the coast of India. So not even on the Red Sea, not near Yemen, off the coast of India, this ship gets hit by a missile. Basically a missile, a drone slash missile, suicide drone. And this is an oil tanker, okay? An oil tanker gets hit by a missile, essentially, hit close enough to the water line that the ship actually took on water. Serious structural damage. No word yet on oil release or anything like that. But we do know that this was a serious attack. This is not just some container got hit or some shrapnel blew a container overboard or something like that. This is an oil tanker that got hit by a missile right off the coast of India. And if you think India is cool with that, you're going to have another thing coming. So this is a rapidly escalating situation. Malaysia is saying that any ships that are related to Israel are not allowed through their waterway. That's the Malacca Strait between Indonesia and Malaysia. You have the Malacca Strait. That's basically where Singapore is. You can go around it. And you can also just kind of stay on the Indonesia side. But you cannot use the Malaysian ports if you are going to Israel or if you're doing business with Israel or something like that. So we have, that's concerning. And so we have this escalation out there that the world is like, we need to do something about this. So countries are sending ships, Australia, Italy, Spain, France, sending ships to the Red Sea to help with this. And the United States, okay, we'll lead this task force. And these other allies are saying, no, we don't trust you with our soldiers. Wow. These are our allies, right? And they're standing up and like growing a backbone and speaking some truth. No, America, we can't trust you with commanding our soldiers. we will put our soldiers in a multinational force, but it has to be by NATO. It has to be a joint command structure. It has to be under some authority other than the United States, because the commander-in-chief of the United States is not trustworthy. That's what 4 of our military allies have just said. That the commander-in-chief and the commanders under him in the United States military are not competent and are not capable of keeping their sailors, their Marines, their soldiers safe, their airmen, and that they need a better command structure. That is an ouchie, friend. So if our command structure is not good enough for them, the question then is it good enough for our soldiers? And the answer to that is no. No, it's not. Over 100 missile attacks have been launched against our troops in Iraq and Syria. And what do we get from the White House? Nothing. Crickets. This is like, I remember back when I was in Afghanistan and such, one of the regions up in the north of Afghanistan was commanded by the, it was the ISAF forces, which was the International Security Forces Afghanistan or whatever. But I remember them used to say what it was called, what it actually stood for was, I saw Americans fighting, because the allies that came to Afghanistan with the United States basically just watched the American soldiers fight, and they just stayed on their bases and they didn't do anything. And the northern parts were commanded by, or were a peacekeeping force from Germany. And I remember that every time the German soldiers started getting shot at, their orders were to get into their armored vehicles and withdraw. So every time some Afghans would start shooting at them, they would not return fire. They would simply get into their vehicles and then they would just leave. And that's basically what the United States is doing right now in Syria, in Iraq, is we're getting shot at and then we're just kind of like hunkering down and hoping not to get shot. That is absolutely crazy. That is terrible command. That belies that we don't even understand the conflict in the first place. And the situation is dire in the Middle East. You ask the question once again, why are we in Iraq? Why are we in Syria? And that's super legitimate of a question in the first place. A genuine leadership would have us out of Syria, out of Iraq. The previous president pulled us out of Iraq, and this president has slowly been weaseling us back into Iraq. Do we have a mission, a purpose of being in Iraq? No, we don't. Just basically putting our troops there so they can get shot at for no purpose. Maybe stabilizing Iraq. But the fact is that the president of Iraq is a stooge for Iran. The Iranian militias are basically running free reign over the country of Iraq. So why would we have troops there? It makes no sense whatsoever. We're putting our troops into a hostile nation and they're just there to be targets in these attacks. And it's insane. What we're doing is insane. And then we go over to to Yemen and off the coast of Yemen, and the idea is we're going to sail all of our ships next to a nation that is firing missiles at our ships and anything that moves. And what's the plan? Okay, so we're going to put our ships there. What's the plan after that? Well, if they shoot at us, we'll shoot the missiles down. And we'll hopefully not get hit by the missiles they're shooting at us. Okay, well, are we going to do anything back to them? Are we going to attack them? Right now, no. No, we're not. So we're not moving ships into position so that we can attack Yemen, which would make maybe some sense. I'm not saying it would be successful, but at least that kind of makes sense. But moving our ships there just to get shot at with no purpose other than just so they can wave the flag and be there, to stabilize things. I'm sorry, friends, but putting soldiers with no clear mission in a location doesn't stabilize things. They're not magicians. They're not like with these auras. We don't send warships in there and then just like everyone's like, okay, so we're just not going to do anything anymore. I mean, the The Houthis, the Houthi party in Yemen, have been bombed for 8 years by the Saudis. Notice something that's not happening right now? The Saudis aren't bombing them. Notice what else isn't happening? The Houthis aren't launching missiles into Saudi Arabia. That's interesting. That's very interesting. It's like suddenly Saudi Arabia is like, you know, maybe these Houthis aren't completely rubbish. Because the way they feel about Israel is how we feel about Israel. Right now, Saudi Arabia and the Houthis kind of have this peace, finally, sort of. This ceasefire. They're not actively shooting at each other, so that the Houthis can sit there and actively shoot at all the ships that go by. Can shoot at the American ships that come by. Shoot at the U.S. warships that are just sitting there being targets. Iran is looking at this and going, no one's doing anything to Yemen, so why don't we do that? We can close the our strait. We can close down the Persian Gulf. Make sure that no ships can come in and out of there that we don't like. Why don't we start shooting at ships off the coast of India? Because that just happened. Why don't we start closing down other straits like the Gibraltar Strait? Why don't we start shutting down other straits like the Malacca Strait? Why don't we hit other choke points? The ships that are going around the Horn of Africa have to go by some nasty places there too. And if they're going by some nasty places down, you know, what happens if terrorists take over in Mozambique or other countries along the route, and they start attacking ships that are going around the Horn of Africa? Well, then how do you get to Europe after if you can't go around the Horn of Africa? If you have to go really far off the coast of the Horn of Africa and go around even further. But global shipping aside, which is being heavily impacted by this, we're talking about 500,000 barrels a day of fuel just for these ships to take the long way around the world. 500,000 barrels of oil per day are going into the atmosphere. Greta Thunberg is absolutely enraged. Wait, no, she's not. No, she's not. She's not enraged by that. 500,000 barrels of oil per day. Why would we talk about that when we can talk about other things, right? So we have massive amounts of pollution happening. I mean, that's the amount of oil it takes to run a small country, okay? So we're just adding basically a whole new country of oil consumption out there due to the fact that the Houthis deciding to shoot at anything that moves off their coast. And the United States military sitting there and watching them do that. I mean, you have to say this. If you're going to do nothing, you should do nothing, right? To go halvesies and spend a lot of money putting our ships into harm's way, into a dangerous zone to do nothing is beyond comprehension. And that's exactly what our commander-in-chief is doing. That's what our commanders are recommending happen right now. And basically, France, Spain, Italy, and Australia are just like, that's a stupid plan. That's a stupid plan. We're not going to be a part of it. You need to give this over to like a military command structure like NATO that actually will come up with a plan. Because run the clock out until your re-election is not a military strategy. And France and Spain and Italy and Australia are not going to put their soldiers and sailors into harm's way in order to get this guy reelected. They're not going to do it. And they're telling us to our face, that's dumb. That's dumb. That's dangerous. No. That's where we are today. And the sad thing is that the politicians over in these other countries are standing up for their soldiers and their sailors, but the politicians in the United States are not standing up for our soldiers and sailors right now. Biden is probably on a plane going to land somewhere in the world at some military base over in other places. His schedule has him at Camp David, which he's not going to Camp David for Christmas. Like, that's just a dumb place to go to for Christmas, right? But they're trying to get them off the radar so that they can sneak them over to somewhere. I mean, that's what presidents do this time of year, to wave the flag and show that they care about the soldiers. But here's the thing. He's not going to go over and visit the ships that are off the coast of Yemen. I guarantee you that. He's not going to go into harm's way. He's going to go someplace relatively safe. And he's going to show that he cares about these soldiers, even though he is jeopardizing their lives for no purpose whatsoever, to stabilize things. Friends, that infuriates me, and if it doesn't infuriate you, I don't know what. I know it's Christmas. Let's be praying for our soldiers who are overseas and other places. Let's pray for commanders who will make smart choices, that are going to realize when their missions are dumb and do everything they can to keep their soldiers as safe as possible, as far away from the danger as possible, that if there is no point to jeopardizing the soldiers' lives, they will do whatever they can within their orders to keep their soldiers safe. And hopefully the commander-in-chief and the people working in the White House will not endanger the soldiers anymore, and that we can get some new people in that will actually make some smarter choices. We're hearing a lot out there that, you know, Trump is saying we're going to get out of these areas. We're going to get out of these conflicts. We're not going to be part of these things anymore. We're going to stop warmongering all over the world, and we're going to actually bring peace and stability to the world through negotiations, diplomacy, and not the use of force, but the threat of force. And that's a serious change. Honestly, I hope we get there. I hope that happens. I hope that we actually get to make a choice this coming fall. I hope that choice is given to us, and I hope that it's a fair choice. Am I optimistic about that? I'm kind of not. I'm kind of not. And I know a lot of you aren't very optimistic about it either. So do what you can out there. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. All right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Merry Christmas, and have a great day. Steve Poplar with the Poplar Report out.